You've just been arrested by a gang of anarchists. The government has allowed them to run wild, anything to halt the progress of the fascist rebellion. They lead you at gunpoint to a church. Salvation, you think, until they take you into the basement. There, you are forced into a jail cell unlike any you have ever seen. As you step inside, you twist your ankle on a brick jutting upwards from the floor. The ground is covered in them, lying at odd angles, preventing you from walking in a straight line. You try to sit down to rest your ankle, but the bed is angled at 40 degrees, making you slide off of it. All you can hear is the constant clicking of a metronome. You don't know if you will ever get out of here, but you can hardly stand another second in this room. You are trapped in a cell. This was the reality for some unlucky prisoners of the Republican anarchists during the Spanish Civil War. This conflict is particularly known for its atrocities committed on all sides. Ostensibly, the combatants were the Republicans, the sitting left-wing coalition, and the Nationalists, the rebelling right-wing fascists and reactionaries. But both of these sides had factions, and for the Republicans, one major group was the anarchists. Previous to the war, they had participated in direct actions like labor strikes and expropriation, some of which turned violent. But once the war began, they became a largely autonomous wing of combatants allied with the Republican cause. One such anarchist was named Alphonse Laurent-Seek. Laurent-Seek had held many odd jobs and had been involved in minor criminal activities like forgery, until he ended up employed by the Republican intelligence services. At some point, under dubious command, he was commissioned to create unique prison cells, one which would torture the prisoner simply by him being inside, rendering him susceptible to interrogation. There were 4 of these jails created throughout Spain in 1938. It's dubious as to what the official government of Republicans knew or sanctioned, but it appears they were constructed with government funds. Why they were placed under churches is unclear. There's an obvious symbolic component, the spiritual confusion of a prisoner when tormented under holy walls, but it more likely came down to pragmatic concerns. The cells were each 3 feet by 6 feet and without natural light. There was no place to sleep in the cells, as the beds were sloped between 20-degree and 45-degree angles. The best sleep a prisoner could get would have been braced or wedged in amongst the jutting concrete. The floor was covered in an irregular pattern of bricks on their side, making it not only brutally uncomfortable to lie down, but impossible to even pace the room. As for the other senses, the only light, flickering between colors, made the patterns on the wall seem to move. The cell was purposefully left bare, so there would be nothing to occupy the prisoner other than the disorienting artwork on walls that seemed to be undulating. There was an auditory element as well, a metronome clicking at a constant rate, paired with a clock in view of the prisoner that always ran fast. This placed time entirely under the control of the captors. This was not simply an art project. These cells were designed to work as Pyscho-Technic torture chambers, a phrase coined by Laurent-Seek. They called this enhanced interrogation. There's a strong contingent that believes the story of these Checas, discovered in Laurent-Seek's confession, is fabricated, either in total or due to coercion via torture, something Franco's regime is well known to do. This is posited to be yet another false justification for Franco's ideological purges, and then further libel against the anarchist cause. I find this uncompelling. Firstly, the main supporters of this theory are all anarchists themselves. Secondly, the jail cells existed, and although there is not forthcoming evidence of specific prisoners, I find it hard to believe that 4 of these places were built and none of them used once. The second layer of pushback is related to the Pyscho-Technic element of the torture. Many critics call Laurent-Seek's use of modernist art principles a gross misrepresentation, simply by the fact they are being used to harm. A core principle of Bauhaus, a main movement that inspired Laurent-Seek, is creating a harmony between the function of an object or space and its design. They argue that these cells are anti-Bauhaus, simply due to the function, necessitating that Laurent-Seek's work is an abandonment of the tradition and cannot be associated with it. I thoroughly disagree. Laurent-Seek's work perfectly follows this principle. If you were designing a place to make the inhabitant dizzy, frantic, and disturbed, you wouldn't change a thing. The ugly form harmonizes perfectly with the ugly function. Instead, the more compelling piece of their argument is that the similarities to contemporary art are not what made the jail so horrible, but instead the physical torment. The conditions of these cells, the inability to move, the difficulty sleeping, the lack of natural light, these were clearly the most harmful elements. But these critics go further, even claiming that the metronome ticking and the fast clock wasn't to upset the prisoner's sense of time, but instead to psychosomatically increase hunger pangs. While that may have been an intended effect, the purpose of these things bear heavily on the psychological. If you're trapped in an unnatural, horrifying environment, combined with chronic sleep deprivation, you will turn more and more mad. Apart from the defense of anarchism, the salience of these arguments is to dissuade us laymen from believing that this disorienting, uncomfortable art that we all subsidize through public museums and grants has some sort of torturous effect. For as long as modernist art has existed, there's always been a problem with the public's interpretation. The aesthetes have been coping with being mocked and maligned for nigh on a century since their abandonment of representational art. How could they dare enforce these tastes upon the provincial strivers and boorish plebes who have no hope of understanding, if simply being in the presence of this art for long enough served to drive a man insane? Well, I don't believe that being trapped with a Rothko would inspire Lovecraftian madness. It is undeniable that art, color, architecture, and form affect everyone, on conscious and unconscious levels. There is a reason Disney coined Go Away Green, and that no prison is painted red. Whether the art can inflict harm? Well, I'll leave it to you. Gazing on this collection of challenging, modern, postmodern, and metamodern art, tell me, how does this make you feel? Up that jam,